Welcome back to Music Kingdom. Over the past few months on this channel, we have blindly reviewed a number of metal songs. And so naturally, I feel it's time we segue into the sibling genre of hard rock, and who better to start with than perhaps Guns N' Roses. Now, to be completely transparent, I am familiar with quite a bit of material by Guns N' Roses already. However, when I learned that there was a song by them I'd never heard before that is perhaps one of their most iconic songs, I knew I had to check it out. And so in this video, we will be listening to, giving a music theory breakdown for, and blindly reviewing Welcome to the Jungle by Guns N' Roses. Hang tight. Hey music lovers, my name is Francis. If you'd like to support the work I put into these videos, click the like button and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you'd like to support the channel even further, you'll find Music Kingdom's Patreon and other affiliate links in the description below. Alright, now before we give the song a listen, first let's briefly talk Welcome to the Jungle by Guns N' Roses. Welcome to the Jungle is the opening track on the debut studio album Appetite for Destruction, released by Guns N' Roses in 1987. Appetite for Destruction initially received very little mainstream attention, and it was not until the following year that Appetite for Destruction became a commercial success after the band had toured and received significant airplay with the singles Welcome to the Jungle, Paradise City, and Sweet Child of Mine. The album went on to peak at #1 on the US Billboard 200, and it became the 7th best-selling album of all time in the United States, as well as the best-selling debut album. With over 30 million copies sold worldwide, it is also one of the best-selling albums globally, which personally I find super badass, especially considering that after its initial release, it received minimal mainstream attention. Now, according to the internet, Welcome to the Jungle was released as the album's second single and signaled from the get-go that this was a band destined for stadium-level superstardom. It took Guns N' Roses 3 hours to write Welcome to the Jungle, but they created everything you could ever want in a floor-filling heavy metal anthem. Axl's snarling swagger gives a confidence via osmosis, the drumming is endearingly head-bangingly simple, and the guitars dart from impressive technicality to the most primal of chords. If there's a rock checklist, this signature song ticks every box. And I've gotta say, after reading all of that, I am absolutely intrigued. Now, to my knowledge as well, what I've also gathered is that Axl Rose once claimed the song was inspired by a chance encounter he had with a deranged man in New York City. This guy came up to me and said, "You know where you are? You're in the jungle, baby. You're gonna die." Guitarist Izzy Stradlin summarizes the song about Hollywood streets true to life, and Slash said it was a very telling lyric, just the stark honesty of it. If you lived in Los Angeles and lived in the trenches, so to speak, you could relate to it. Either way, evidently, it would change everything for the band. Now, with that all out of the way, a few quick disclaimers. Disclaimer number 1, I acknowledge this is by no means a deep cut by Guns N' Roses. In fact, quite the opposite. This song happens to be one of their biggest hits ever made. But as mentioned in many of the other metal reviews we've done, I prefer to start with the basics and then work my way into the deep cuts. Second disclaimer, as also mentioned, I am quite familiar with the work of Guns N' Roses, 2 of my favorites being Civil War and November Rain. So those certainly would not be a first-time listening experience, but if you'd like for this channel to review them anyways, let me know down in the comments below. Alright, at long last, it's time we give the song a listen, and just a heads up, I will be pausing a couple times to give my thoughts and ultimately to avoid any copyright strikes. And as always, be sure to stick around after the song for a music theory breakdown from our expert, and then we're going to divide the song into specific categories, grading them each and arriving at an overall score. You're immediately hooked, that's for sure. It's well put together. Oh, okay. Very smooth transition. And what a debut for them, too. like the touches of harmonies. It's a fun vibe. Well-written lyrics. Thoughts so far, definitely more fun than I was anticipating. Not that I was anticipating it wouldn't be fun, and I guess for a debut it is what you would expect. However, after songs like Civil War or November Rain, I just wasn't sure what I was getting into. But very fun, very playful, and I thought the introduction was executed perfectly, especially with that seamless transition into the bulk of the song. I can also appreciate that it has a certain metal feel to it, but they're not necessarily trying to do the metal thing. They keep it light, they keep it fun, and I am excited to see where it goes. Another smooth transition. Great little solo. I'm gathering that it's to be taken seriously, but maybe not totally seriously. As like a piece of art, you know? Stays fresh. At this point in the song, I am still having fun, and I do think overall it is well done. However, I will also say that I'm grateful for the little change-ups here, the little guitar solo there, keeping it fresh enough because I would have to say otherwise, I feel it would be a bit redundant. Yes, most music is obviously repetitive, which is fine, but for me there is a fine line between repetitive and redundant. And if not for the composition or production decisions in this song to kind of keep you engaged and keep you fresh, I would kind of be bored with the song. So far at least. There is quite a bit of song left, and yes, to be clear, I am enjoying it. That was a good bridge. Oh, what a solo. Oh wow, this part's very well produced. Instrumentation. And it keeps you engaged. You know where you are? You in the jungle, baby. You're gonna die. In the jungle. Welcome to the jungle. Oh my god. The higher vocals. I was not expecting it. Oh man. Wow. That was a hell of an outro. Hell of an outro. Alright, initial thoughts before we go to the expert's corner and then break apart the song, grading it, arriving at an overall score. As mentioned, I was enjoying the song, but that final minute or so, that outro, disgusting. Overall, yes, I do think it is a good song, and with the context in mind of it being the very first track of their debut album, I mean, what a debut. And also, evidently, largely due to this song in particular, it would shoot them to a stratosphere of stardom, and rightfully so. Now, if we're taking the joy, the emotion, the passion, the fun out of it, and getting analytical, which is what we do on this channel lightheartedly, compositionally speaking, it is pretty simple. However, I do like the melodies, and I do like the little detours they did along the way to keep you engaged. Production-wise, regarding the genre of hard rock or metal, as always, it is going to be much more simple and practical so that they can replicate it later on live. So I would say there's not much to say about production. However, that final minute of the song where it all comes together, it's pieced together intricately, it gets more instrumental. All of that, in my opinion, is definitely an added bonus. Lyrically, I do think it is well written. However, nothing really in a realm or a stratosphere of like gifted writing. And of course, to some extent, it is meant to be fun. Vocally, if I'm being more objective, I would have to say it is impressive what he's doing with his voice. That is not easy to do. Subjectively, and it does boil down to taste, I'm not sure if I'm a huge fan of that vocal style to begin with. And on the note of originality, honestly, I can't say it is the most original sounding song. While it is good, while it is fun, I wouldn't necessarily say it's anything fresh or new or inspired or artistic. To be honest, in my opinion, plenty of songs historically that existed before this one sounded like this, and obviously many songs ever since then also sound like this. But again, just by listening to it, obviously it's not meant to be taken that seriously, and I would imagine the focus is to fill a stadium and perform a hell of a concert. And of course, I do have even further specific thoughts regarding the song, which I'll get to as I'm breaking it apart, arriving at an overall score. But first, let's go to the expert's corner for a music theory breakdown and to see how he grades the category of composition.
Welcome to the jungle. Welcome to the expert's corner. This is Welcome to the Jungle by Guns N' Roses. This song is in the time signature of 4/4, and I would say it's in the key of E flat minor. However, there is a section later in the song that sounds like it's in D flat major. But this song does jump around quite a bit. It has a few different grooves in there, so it could be in multiple different keys. So compositionally, this song relies a lot on power chords and repeating riffs. One of the most prominent riffs, for example, goes something like this, with some variation like this. But as I said, this song does jump around and do quite a few different things. For example, the section I mentioned earlier that makes it sound like it's in D flat major. You have a D flat major chord going to a G flat major chord. Kind of goes back and forth between those two a bit. Overall, this song has some badass riffs. It has a fun, aggressive energy to it, and overall, it's just a fun song. Compositionally, however, if I'm going to be completely objective, it's not going to score very high just because there isn't much there. As I said before, lots of power chords and repetitive riffs. But hey, this song was a massive success, and clearly it's a song that doesn't need incredible, intricate composition in order to achieve what it did. So all of that being said, I'm going to give this song's composition a 6.5 out of 10. Back to you, Francis.
A very special thank you to our expert for providing a music theory breakdown and giving the song a relatively solid 6.5 out of 10. And now it's time to break apart the song into 4 more categories, grading them each, averaging them out, and arriving at an overall song score. Starting with the category of production specifically, I'm inclined to give it a very solid 7.5 out of 10. As mentioned, the genre of hard rock and the genre of metal are going to be more difficult to grade regarding production, because of course, historically it is going to be done in a more practical way so that it can be replicated when it's time to perform live. So obviously you don't really have certain elements of production to base the score off of, whether it be pitched vocals, auto-tune, a well-crafted beat, throwing horns or strings at a song, technological sound effects, so on and so forth. But having said that, with this song in particular, you can at least gauge how well mixed it was, you can absolutely see how well put together it was. Certain decisions, which yes, do bleed into the category of composition, but decisions decisions like knowing when to throw the guitar solo in there. And of course, that amazing outro of the song where they really beef it up with the instruments. Things like that for me are absolutely production decisions. I feel that they were good, just not quite great, which is reflected by a 7.5. Up next, we have the category of lyrics, which I'm inclined to give a respectable 6.5 out of 10. As mentioned earlier in the video, I do think the lyrics are well written, but other than that, there really isn't all too much to say about them, even though they are fun. In a literal sense, I do like it being about a new place, whether it be inspired by New York or Los Angeles. In a figurative sense, I also like it as well being paralleled with perhaps the industry, or as well in a somewhat metaphoric sense, you could also look at it as them saying welcome to the jungle in terms of them arriving at the scene, welcome to what we are as Guns N' Roses. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, you do have some nice writing, whether it's the verse of, we've got everything you want, honey, we know the names, we are the people that can find whatever you may need, if you got the money, honey, we got your disease. That's clever and that is well written. But then of course you've got the, albeit playful, feel my serpentine, I want to hear you scream, welcome to the jungle, it gets worse every day. When you're high, you never want to come down, so down, so down, so down, yeah, ow. So obviously, yes, exciting lyrics, fun lyrics, certainly better than a lot of the shit that exists today. But let's not pretend it's some lyrical masterclass of brilliant writing and penmanship either. Moving on to the category of vocals specifically, I'm inclined to give them a very strong 8 out of 10. As mentioned, while the vocal performance in this song is not subjectively necessarily my cup of tea, stylistically at least, I would be hard-headed and ignorant to not acknowledge that they are impressive and demanding and challenging to execute. Now, obviously, is it the most versatile vocal performance ever where the singer is giving you pretty much anything you want from a performance? No, which is why an 8 is great, but a 9 or 10 would be some masterclass. But otherwise, yeah, a very impressive vocal delivery that most other people could not even sniff if they tried. All right, now arriving at our final category of originality, I'm inclined to give it a respectable 7 out of 10. To be honest with you guys, I was actually going to give the originality in this song probably closer to a 6. However, not to be too repetitive or redundant, but that final minute or so, that outro to the song, for me, really was impressive. But yeah, otherwise, when you're talking about originality, you're talking about inspiration, you're talking about artistry, you're talking about expression, you're talking about making something that is so influential, iconic, which yes, of course, this song is iconic in its own right. However, creatively, it's not necessarily anything that's either musically genius or unlike anything that has come before or since. In my opinion, and I do not mean this as a diss whatsoever, but to me it definitely sounds like your stereotypical cliche 80s hard rock radio hit, which is okay, those are good, those are fun, but I wouldn't say it's all that original. So now if we add it all up, including the expert's composition score, and average it out, Welcome to the Jungle by Guns N' Roses from their debut studio album titled Appetite for Destruction, released in 1987, gets a very solid 7.1 out of 10. In my opinion, arriving at that score after breaking apart the song makes sense because subjectively I do feel that it is a very good song, but not quite a great song, at least when compared to some of the greatest songs by anybody ever in the history of the music industry. But of course, as mentioned, yes, that is just my opinion, so definitely let me know in the comments down below whether or not you agree. Am I right on the money? Am I batshit crazy? Am I somewhere in between? As well as what your favorite Guns N' Roses songs are and other recommendations by them for this channel to review next. As always, if you'd like to support myself and the work I put into these videos, click the like button and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you'd like to support the channel even further, you'll find Music Kingdom's Patreon and other affiliate links in the description below. This has been another edition of Music Kingdom. Thank you so much for listening with me, and I'll look forward to jamming with you in the next one.